The world is full of redundant old buildings, blessed with charm and presence. Of course, most of them were not designed to be lived in, but some of them are capable of conversion into something more habitable, beautiful, and light. And then there are the other redundant old places that tempt only the foolhardy. Engineering structures which were never designed even to set foot in. They're on the dark side.
One couple who've been tempted to the industrial dark side live near the Humber Estuary in East Yorkshire. Richard Bennett is a building services engineer and his partner, Felicia, a former building operations manager. Theirs is a humongous self-built project. Beneath the earth they're excavating lies buried a vast 2.5 million litre water reservoir, which they've just bought for £98,000. Their hope is to transform this dark, damp, 55-year-old structure into a generous 10-room home for them and their 4-year-old daughter, Maya.
Never really been comfortable in houses that have been built for somebody else. You know, the opportunity for individualism is limited to curtains. The idea of creating something that you can actually live in and enjoy is such a natural thing for me to want to do.
Doing so underground on such a vast scale might sound balmy. But Richard and Feli used to work in commercial construction, renovating dilapidated buildings in Hungary.
We met 18 years ago, I think it was, being introduced as our new project manager for the big new development. She was very charming.
I was impressed with Feli when I first met her because she knew what she was doing, and she was the person running the whole office. She was the operations director. We fell into friendship, and then, you know, obviously things, clearly by evidence, things progressed. So
when Richard discovered that the reservoir was for sale, it was a chance to bring the family home to his beloved nation-state of Yorkshire.
It's a beautiful part of the world. Made a conscious move to bring us here.
I feel extremely proud of Richard and what he's doing. I think he's a great guy. Everybody should have one Richard.
Struggle to disagree with that, actually.
That looks very, very atmospheric in the mist. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Very good.
Good, good. You're driving, which I'm really pleased to see. Hello, Richard.
Hello, hello.
How are you, Kevin?
Delighted
You nearly
to
scraped the top of this off.
Nearly.
What an amazing thing to have bought.
Yes.
How did you get hold of it?
We went directly to Yorkshire Water and bought it.
Why?
We had this idea a long time ago to create a sustainable, earth-sheltered building and not pay for all the earthworks. We're just going to use the walls.
You sort of just go straight for a ready-made, earth-sheltered structure and convert it.
That's exactly right.
But you're an engineer, and I know that engineers have this sense of adventurism. You know, for them, nothing is impossible. In fact, the more crazy the idea, the better, really.
We're always thinking about how it can be done.
Yeah.
And that's the essence.
Exactly.
We don't have an architect on board. We don't have anyone. We're really at the engineering stage, the discovery stage, and we're going to finalise it and polish it once we know what we're actually polishing.
So, no architect, no other help. Instead, a voyage of discovery fueled by pure love of engineering. Wow.
We can get in, yeah?
Yes, absolutely.
Fantastic.
The only way of accessing the old structure is via the valve room. From here, stairs lead down to an otherworldly water chamber.
Amazing. A staircase. Do you keep this?
Yes, this is staying.
This is magnificent. Oh, my good Lord. It's vast. It's twice as deep as I thought it would be.
4.5 meters.
Wow.
from where we're standing
Wow.
to the underside of the slab.
It's spectacular. When you first saw this place, when you first came down here, what was your reaction?
I'm not claustrophobic, but I think that was the moment when I understood people who were afraid of being locked up in places like this. I mean, it's spooky and dark, and anything can be just down here.
Emotionally, you know, it sounds a bit daft, but you fall in love with places. And I got the idea that it wants to be set free. It's been down here on its own long enough, so all this kind of void needs to disappear up into the sky and let the sunlight in.
They've got planning permission for a single-storey home to be buried within the existing 2,600 cubic metre underground structure. The obvious question is, how do you turn a dank, dark, industrial place into a comfortable home, with no architect to help you envision it? Well, Richard and Feli's audacious plan is to take the concrete roof off, remove all the supporting pillars, and use the remaining walls and floor as a ready-made structure for their new home. But there's no guarantee that removing the roof won't cause the walls to collapse, and their dream of earth-sheltered living with it. But if all goes well, within the newly formed courtyard, Richard plans to build a super lightweight steel frame to poke just above the perimeter walls. High-level windows within it will provide views and introduce more light. The house will be big, 430 square meters, and accessed by removing a big chunk of wall. The interiors will be mainly one room deep and bright, thanks to big windows with an open-plan kitchen, dining and sitting room in the south-facing wing. The reservoir's thick concrete walls will, excitingly, be left bare to exploit their earth-sheltered capacity to store heat and release it in winter. In the west-facing wing, there'll be a guest bedroom, a room for their daughter, Maya, and Richard and Feli's bedroom with one family bathroom. And as you'd expect of an engineer, there'll be a large workshop, and in the valve room upstairs, an office. The expanse of this place means there's plenty more space for another office, a studio for Feli, who's now a photographer, and a conservatory. On top of a timber roof, a wildflower sward will reinstate the green covering of the reservoir. They hope to complete this huge upcycling project by themselves in just 9 months, bringing in specialist contractors only when necessary. It's madness, and what's more, success depends on how the existing structure was built back in 1959.
What's to stop these external walls from collapsing in? Because presumably the lid is doing some job at retaining them vertically.
We have no idea. We have no idea exactly how this top slab affects the walls. We're hoping the slab is actually floating above, but resting on the walls. This is our greatest wish.
It has to be, doesn't it? Any extra intervention into supporting these concrete perimeter walls, that gets to be extremely expensive. How much is the whole thing going to cost?
£150,000.
150 grand.
Yeah.
It's a big building, isn't it? It's a big project for 150.
Yeah. But we've already bought the floor, foundations, and half the walls, 60% of the walls, with the purchase of the land.
That's a good way of looking at it. It is a brilliant thing, and it requires an engineer to do it. Nobody else in their right mind would have a go.
The task ahead is colossal, yet they have just £150,000 to play with, funded using a combination of life savings and Richard earning money as a freelance engineer when he has time.
Shout down the pipes, Maya.
Oh.
Hello.
Hey! Love you, Daddy.
Love you too, darling.
Until the house is ready to move into, the family will be living in a tiny rented flat nearby.
This place is just brilliant, isn't it? From an engineering point of view, it's really attractive. You can see why Richard gets so excited, because look, here's a floor. Here are foundations, meters deep, that are really strong, that slope away into the middle. There are walls too. I mean, you know, you've already got the beginnings of a building here. The trouble is, the moment Richard starts to nibble into the ceiling to remove those dozens of tons of concrete up there, the moment he tries to remove these great big heavy thick concrete columns. Yeah, that's when the trouble starts. Each intervention carries with it a serious and possibly expensive risk. This place was never, ever designed to be lived in. It was designed to hold water, and that's it. And it may yet resist every attempt to alter that original purpose. It may fight back.
The reservoir's first opportunity to fight back comes on demolition day. Removing the roof could bring the walls down with it or partially destroy them. There is no money to cover that happening.
The engineering side of it is a complete mystery to us. We don't know how the supporting wall is tied in to the slab or what's going to happen until we uncover more of the structure and understand how it's all put together. It could be very expensive or it could be very benign.
What Richard and Feli have budgeted for the demolition is £7,000 for a 22-ton metal Munchosaurus.
There it goes.
Oh, there it goes.
And Ian, a demolition hero who's at the helm of the concrete crusher.
A lot of people think you can go into an house or building and just, it's willy-nilly. But demolition is very controlled. Bricking in's the hard part, slowly munching the edges, so when the roof does pre-collapse, it doesn't tear the walls as well.
But after 45 minutes, the reservoir still isn't surrendering to the jaws of the machine.
Is it more useful to you to munch down on that corner? I'll keep an eye on the walls.
They reposition, hoping for more luck.
Is this better?
So if you can get under it, that's what it's trying to do now. The corner appears to be the weak spot.
Finally, they break through. But there's still no inkling of whether the roof is tying the walls together, whether it'll bring them crashing down with it. By the banks of the Humber Estuary, Richard and Feli's old water reservoir is demonstrating true Yorkshire grit.
You see some more of it coming through.
The heavy concrete lid hardly wants to budge in response to the ravages of the Munchosaurus.
That's it. There it goes.
Oh, there it goes.
Remarkably, the roof doesn't seem to be structurally attached to the walls. They're still standing.
It's going to behave itself. Touch wood. Hurrah.
By the end of the day, having munched through 50 square meters of roof and a small section of wall that'll provide access to their new home, the site's starting to resemble a war zone.
Right, we can't go too close because you see those steel pieces, they're very, very sharp. You see this one? It looks like a wriggly worm.
It doesn't look scary. That looks like a giant spider web.
It does, doesn't it? My hat gone.
All 650 square meters of the roof are gone within a week. And Richard and Feli have a concrete courtyard.
I'm very pleased. Did I say I was pleased? I'm very pleased. I'm very, very happy. It's a milestone. We are at a milestone. I love this building. We're just mental, aren't we? Eh? Well, it just seems like perfect sense, but I don't think everyone would agree with that.
Just 2 months in, Richard and Feli have the basic structure of their new home. Deep foundations, a floor, and 4 earth-insulated walls. Not bad for £7,000.
Big change, Richard.
Hello.
Big change. This is radical, isn't it, now?
But basically, everything is played out. The tank has not let us down. She's been very, very gracious.
All stayed up, didn't it? Eh?
Yeah, technical term is going nowhere, I think.
Oh, right, good. That's what you want, isn't it? What's fascinating, of course, is I suppose, as predicted. So once you take the lid off, it's no longer a water tank at all. You know, now you've got that opening there. It's a wall.
Yeah.
It does feel a little bit like being in a prison yard, but other than that, it's, you know, you're open to the elements.
The
Big time.
valve house doesn't help. The valve house looks like a huge watchtower. I mean, it does have that exercise yard feel to it.
Well, hopefully not for much longer. But now they can see the space they have, Richard and Feli can plan the layout of their new home. And they've had a change of heart about not using an architect.
Not knowing what this structure was going to look like once the demolitions had been done, I asked around and found a helpful architect.
Was that always the way? Was that always the plan, though?
The design was led by the structure. Now we know about it, but it soon became apparent that there are various issues that justify an architect's existence.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah. You don't know how it pains me to say that.
It's satisfying to hear an engineer recommending an architect, however reluctantly.
Is today the first time you've been here?
This is the first time I've been here.
Of course, an architect will charge fees, tens of thousands for something of this size. Richard and Feli only have around 140 grand left.
What do you reckon?
Amazing, massive hole in the ground. Brilliant opportunity, really. I only have a limited brief at the moment, and that may
I
evolve.
think he's got a limited budget, that's right.
Okay, but thinking in terms of where he is with this project at the moment, normally I would expect to be spending something in the region of 400 hours of designing and detailing work to take it through. And I'm not quite sure where that 400 hours is going to come from.
Yup. I mean, he could pay you in old rebar or crushed concrete at the moment.
He's got plenty of that, yeah.
The value an architect can bring to a pioneering project like this can't be emphasised enough. This remarkable £1 million conversion of a water reservoir in Kent was originated by the architect Shane Gell and later developed up and implemented by the designer Kevin Brennan.
Any existing building or structure, it's going to dictate, isn't it? And you're going to discover stuff as you go along.
Yeah, absolutely.
The original structure of the reservoir is pretty similar to the one in East Yorkshire. And the architecture reflects the generous budget here with open-plan layouts, large windows, light wells and terraces all fitted within, around and on top of the old structure. There's even a first-floor pavilion, a hunkered viewing box that reaches out and grabs views across the North Downs.
You've punched through and kept the original lid.
Well, the interiority of it was the sort of its whole reason for us wanting it. So it's trying to preserve the characteristics of the vessel itself. It was really a project that worked from the inside out. It wasn't a piece of architecture, it was more of a piece of archaeology and interior design.
Do you think that there are lots of ways of treating these types of buildings? Do you think there's more than one approach that's valid?
I think, you've got to come to it with respect. The building allows you to do something, otherwise it's demolished. And we didn't want to go that far because the characteristics of why we wanted it would have been erased, and then it would have just been a conventional big house.
Treat it for what it is.
Just respect it and work with its rhythm and its, its structure.
This is what considered design and £1 million provides you with. Whereas Richard has opted for a more make-it-up-as-you-go-along strategy. With 140 grand left in his pocket, it'll be interesting to see how much their architect can help them. But 6 months on, budgetary concerns turn out to be the least of their worries.
Rather frustratingly, things aren't moving as quickly as we'd like them to. I went through some tests and it turns out that I'm going to need an operation.
Richard's been diagnosed with cancer.
Richard can have an operation in 2-3 weeks' time, and after that, very serious recovery.
We'll get better.
But days after the operation, Richard contracts blood poisoning and becomes dangerously ill. It's 7 months before he's well enough to return to sight.
It was a bit racy there for a while. slowly you get better and slowly you start building your life again.
They have no income, so all their savings reserved for the project are now being used for rent and bills instead. For the next 2.5 years, Richard tries to balance recovery with stints of work as a freelance engineer, arduously scraping together funds.
I have to keep the work going to pay for the project. We don't have choice, so I have to work to keep it going. Thanks a lot.
Meanwhile, their architect, Richard Addenbrooke, develops Richard and Feli's designs into a very basic set of architectural plans for just £3,000. Finally, in the spring of 2017, after a break of 3 years, the project takes a huge leap forward with the installation of the steel frame that'll form the structure of the new home. To keep costs to an absolute minimum, Richard, ever the engineer, has designed it himself with super slim sections of steel, far more slender than you'd expect on a building of this size.
With the steels, we basically tried to save as much money as possible. We've opted for a back-to-back channel arrangement, which effectively is a lot lighter in terms of its components, and it can get installed. The overall steel is costing £12,000, which is about 60% of what you would normally pay. We achieved that by doing the design and all the setting out and fabrication drawings ourselves, which adds to the nervousness, really, because if it goes wrong...
It's going to be all your fault.
It'll be all my fault.
There are over 155 sections of skinny steel, 900 bolts tying it all together.
No, it's just a question whether that C thing is horizontal or not, but I think it's the angle because it's up. It looks leaning, it looks like it's leaning in.
3 hours in, so far so good.
So far it fits. It fits. I'm now starting to enjoy the day for the first time. For me, it's changing from what is a derelict tank with a roof off to a building. It's quite a sort of a remarkable change.
What are also remarkable are the views that Richard's frame now sets up above the old perimeter walls through what will be a series of high-level windows.
It's nice to stand up here and to see how the roof is going to be and the height and everything.
Very, very, very exciting.
The schedule may have snowballed from an anticipated 9 months into an epic 3 years and counting. But in that time, perhaps, Richard and Feli have at least been able to build up their reserves of hope and belief in this extraordinary project.
You or I, in Richard's position, might be saying to ourselves at this point in a project, you know what, I made a terrible mistake. I need to embrace life, go off in a different direction. I'll forget that project. It's too much stress. Whereas for him, well, the exact opposite is true. He's come back to this project not with the same amount of energy and commitment and passion that he had before. He's come back with more.
It's remarkable that after Richard's arduous recovery from illness, the steel frame of this pioneering reservoir conversion is up so quickly.
Oh, heavens, this is quite something.
It's over 3.5 years since Richard and Feli set out on this madcap scheme.
The steelwork has to be your design because it's half the size of anything I would expect to find.
What are you trying to say?
What I'm trying to say is that you've made this as fine as you possibly can.
We did, actually. We liked it because it does have a nod to sort of industrial, kind of old-worldy train stations and stuff like that.
Well,
so they knew what they were doing back then.
Yeah, still enormously elegant.
Thank you.
Wow.
We're happy with it, aren't we?
Yeah, and it's going to be visible all the way, more or less, inside. So
Yeah.
I think that's why it was really important to have something that's, you know, pretty.
Yeah.
But their architect, Richard Addenbrooke, remains sceptical that Richard and Feli can finish this project with just £110,000 left.
It's bordering on 300 square metres. So, for example, if you were to do a new build, you'd probably be looking at about £450,000 budget. I think he may just be underestimating how much work he needs to do now, and he may become unstuck.
The only hope they have of pulling off this project so cheaply is for Richard to do the vast majority of the work himself. By midsummer, the elegant grid shell roof's partly up, thanks to Richard and a couple of joiners. But he'll be working solo to board out the rest of the structure.
I did think about replacing the joiners, but we are building this very, very cheaply. So it's 1930 to the datum. So the underside of these other windows have to be 1930. 584 minus 45.
After all Richard's been through, you might think this was a hardship for him.
So I need 6 of those, 539. Regarding the illness and the impact it's had on the build, I think it's been a positive thing. I'm really, really okay, and I'm enjoying the build element to it. This is, you know, a small kind of bit of paradise for me right now. I wake up in the morning and I look forward to it, and I enjoy this immensely.
Not everyone's enjoying the process.
I made you some special ones.
Maya is now 9, and the family have outgrown the tiny flat they were only ever meant to live in for a few months.
So here we are in the living room, dining room, storage, playroom and television room. We were just looking for something that we'll do like for half a year, maximum a year, and years have passed. This is our bedroom, storage, all the, you know, things that you would keep probably in your garage, like all the Christmas decorations, you know, clothes hanging everywhere, drying. I said, oh, all right, you know, we can live out of boxes like for a couple of months.
I'm always saying to my mum, when can we move in? Because then we could have lots of pets and my bedroom would be a lot bigger like it is now. And it's going to be really fun and exciting.
When we started the project, she was just merely 4. It just would have been nice for her to enjoy all those in-between years living there. It does make me a little bit sad, but obviously that's life. Sometimes a bit kind of frustrating to stand there and like, oh, okay, so what's next? There has been quite a friction between us because of how he sees it like as a nice long journey, steadily working. If you gave him like another 5-10 years, he would probably easily kind of fill all that time there, but he knows he hasn't got that much. We're getting a bit impatient. I just really want to move in and just be there.
But with so little money and Richard working by himself, it's another 4 months before the whole structure's boarded out with timber, by which time winter's approaching.
If you want to get that end, then.
Yeah.
Getting their cost-effective rubber roof on quickly and cheaply means the whole family tackling it together.
Kitchen, be ready, because we've got like 5,632 more to go. We always try to do things together, but also whilst he was doing things that only he can do. I mean, I'm not such a, a buff guy. It's good to see that actually it is going somewhere now, because it just gives you the hope and kind of you can see the light at the end of the tunnel.
They had wanted to install a green roof here, but with just £80,000 left, they had to ditch that idea and opt for a simple rubber membrane instead.
We've got some ridiculous quotes for doing this. The whole roof was typically around 40 to 50,000. This is costing us around 12,000 to do the whole roof.
By the time we're doing the last bit on, we're going to be experts now.
There are strong architectural and engineering ideas in this place now, but there are also compromises being made because of budget. I wonder which will win out.
That's the result.
The start of 2018 sees Richard installing 140 square metres of larch cladding on his own. although he does, thank goodness, get a local fitter, Phil, to help him with the windows.
Yeah.
Thanks to Richard's ever practical engineering mind,
Are you in there?
I'm in, yeah.
Are you okay to tilt?
not only do the windows fit perfectly, but these high-level clear-story panes will allow more light and far-reaching views into the building.
I bet you're loving it.
I'm loving it, yeah. I'm absolutely loving it.
Little steps, but you know, I love it. But
Ronnie
we're
loves
still,
it. You heard it
yeah.
here.
4.5 years since Richard and Feli set out on this pioneering project.
Oh, hello, you two.
The new structure is finally watertight.
It is big. Do you know, it's really weird this, but I could swear that you've added 8 meters in length here, because I remember this as being probably 2/3 of the size.
Really?
Yeah, it's quite remarkable.
Daunting is what it is.
Yes. Yeah, it would be and for any decorator or carpenter
Or
or
DIY
electrician.
hobbyist.
Or
Yeah,
DIY hobbyist, because you're all of those, aren't you? You're doing all of those jobs.
Yeah.
It is quite heroic, I have to say.
Is it?
Well, I mean, the building is heroic, so is the undertaking.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to need scooters or a bicycle or something.
We've already got the skateboard.
Got to be the way forward, hasn't it?
100 metres to get around the whole perimeter, yeah.
Wow. This ceiling bay here, I reckon that's about 20 square metres. The one next to it, about the same. So 2 ceiling bays here, that's 40 square metres, which is about the footprint of the average 2.5, 3-bedroom house, whatever. Now, there are 18 bays, so that means that this building occupies more or less the same footprint as 9 houses. But I think we should forget the house analogy, because, in fact, what this building really looks like to me is 3 sports halls joined together.
It's big, it's unfinished, and Richard and Feli have £40,000 left. The all-consuming effort required of them will likely continue for some time.
Is there a deadline at all? Have you discussed between the two of you when you might move in?
Endlessly.
Endlessly is a good date.
That this September is going to be definitely the deadline.
Well, good luck with that.
In an effort to speed things up, Feli takes on the enormous task of grinding and cleaning the reservoir's walls, all 450 square metres of them.
This is quite an epic job. I'm already dreaming about me grinding.
The walls are being left exposed.
What we're doing is we're taking off this top layer, sort of waterproofing treatment they did for the tank. We've decided to grind it down and leave it as is, because this is more or less the only feature of the tank that sort of stays. It's really just the walls that's still with us. It will always remind us to how the tank used to be.
Meanwhile, Richard sets about constructing the epic suspended timber floor that runs right through their new home.
It's all been designed to make it easier for me to do on my own. There's no question about it. That I can make it on the ground and lift it up and place it into the relevant sort of slot before fixing it. So each one of these components are manhandleable.
As the floor goes in,
Big project.
it's finally time for Richard and Feli to call in the cavalry. Specialist trades who can finally take some of the pressure off. Electricians, plumbers, and plasterers.
There's a definite limit to what anyone can achieve on their own within a time frame. You have to sort of get the trades in. They work so much quicker and they know what they're doing, and there's a buzz about it, and it all sort of gathers up momentum. There isn't enough of me and my time to carry on doing it. I'd be going on forever.
considering the scale of the project, and he's doing it all himself. You know, I take my hat off to him. It's credit to him and his wife. It's something that, you know, dreams are built of, and he's certainly trying to create himself a fantastic dream here.
Of course, pulling off such a vast, strange and beautiful project for just 150 grand was always going to require a superhuman effort. Of course, it would never take 9 months. But after everything Richard and Feli have been through over the last 5 years, if anyone deserves to make it work, they do. It was way back in 2013 that Richard and Feli set out to transform their empty Yorkshire reservoir into a home for themselves and their young daughter, Maya.
This project has been 6 years in construction, 6 years of experimental engineering, 6 years of a family working together to design and build their own home. What an extraordinary thing that is. So, I don't know how well it's finished. I really don't care, actually, if it isn't properly finished. The important thing is, I know it's going to be interesting.
From afar, the valve room, freshly painted and gleaming white, sits splendidly above the 60-year-old structure. An encouraging sign. But to glimpse more of this home nestled within the reservoir's thick walls, you have to get much closer.
Good heavens. Oh, there are terraces. It's a bit like being in southern Italy, walking into a ruined portal of a city. Oh, this is altogether more delightful there. Actually, do you know what? This is really beautiful.
This former industrial structure has been reborn into a magnificent courtyard home. Strikingly clad in a combination of crinkly steel and now weathered larch, the facade casts geometric shapes that are echoed in the gravel and grass landscaped courtyard.
Hello.
Hello.
Great to see you both.
And you.
Looking so well.
Thank
and
you.
And the place looking so well. I hadn't anticipated this level of finish, really. It's really, really good.
Thank you very much.
And it's suddenly like walking out into a monastic garden or something, you know, where the architecture encloses the space and there's a wall, you're protected. And I wasn't prepared for the completeness of the buildings. What's glorious now is that the run, the rhythms, the continuity, and the patterns. And I particularly like the galvanized work, which is all like a little line of jewelry almost. How long have you been here?
3 months. This is literally a dream come true. We've been kind of locked up in that flat without any outside space, anything, and it's just beautiful to wake up to, you know, birds singing.
Yeah.
You just open the door, and and you're here in the courtyard, and it's just wonderful. It's really something special.
Would you like to have a look inside?
Creating a cosy family home within the 4 concrete walls of a dark, damp reservoir was never going to be easy. So how have they fared?
Oh, it's a very grand space. How lovely.
Thank you.
How very lovely. Very good.
It's huge.
It's not as big as I remember it. All my concerns that it would be somehow too big evaporate here. You just think, oh, I'd rather like to come and enjoy using this. Very lovely. And the most extraordinary thing, I have to say, is the steelwork. The whole thing is just elegant.
The steelwork I always loved. I from the very start, I thought it was a brilliant idea.
The concrete walls are also brilliant. They are the new backdrop of family life now, of possessions and mementos that have finally found space to shine.
Nicely kind of assembled all out of the boxes. This is just pure joy, because I know Richard was looking forward to obviously finishing all the sort of structural bits and all the things, but to me this was really the dream come true. Finally have all our little memories that was sitting in boxes for 6 years or even longer now, and it's just lovely.
And then you've added 6 years worth of extra memories.
Yes.
In the photographs. All of this project.
Yeah.
Taken
by me.
By you. And some lovely things going on.
I love creating memories, and I was trying to do that all the way through.
Yeah, there's such humanity in them. They're great. They're magical. Particularly like the shot of Richard behind bars.
Yeah.
The light on Maya's face in the dumper is my particular favourite.
Yeah. Oh, that's pretty. Yeah. Well, of course, these are photographs of her growing up.
Yeah.
Yeah. That steel frame also grabs light and views out, and a bit of extra head height in the corner for an elevated mezzanine snug. Great commanding view of the space. It's lovely out underneath this great sailing roof. It's quite powerful up here, isn't it? Like a command and control position.
Kind of.
There's something tent-like about being underneath this structure, you know?
I mean, obviously, every beam has a slight deflection by its very nature, so you do get that.
Slight dipping, yeah. It's very beautiful.
No, but we're very happy with it.
From the open-plan living space, a corridor leads to the west-facing bedroom wing.
This is going to be Maya's bedroom, but we are all sharing it right now.
Okay.
She's not happy about it.
When do you get to move out of Maya's room? Because obviously she'll be kind of kicking you out otherwise.
A couple of weeks.
Also complete is a rather lovely family bathroom. But there remains a lot of space still to be finessed. The master bedroom, a photographer's studio for Feli. It's a bit like a film set. And Richard's cavernous workshop, part of which is to become a guest bedroom. Of course, you're a man under threat, aren't you? You know, I mean, your cave is being diminished. It was the entire site at one point.
Well, first of all, I'm significantly outnumbered. I am the only kind of male in the whole vicinity. It used to be a bit of a playground, and now the playground is sort of shrinking. Now I have to sort of wash my hands before I sit down on the sofa.
Now you have to tidy up. That's what you have to do. Make yourself some space here. Look. But what's going to happen to the pump tower? What's that for?
Hotly contested, but it's going to be my office.
Yeah. Just don't expect it to happen anytime soon. Building a home by yourself over 6 years on a threadbare budget is a task few could tolerate. Inevitably, this approach has led to a little anguish along the way. What have been the great stresses of the last 6 years?
It was very hard to get through the times when we didn't know how Richard was, like his health.
Changed the whole dynamic. We lost the time, we lost the money, and sort of recovery and all that kind of stuff. So it just completely changed the whole sort of game. I do feel privileged that I was allowed to continue.
That makes sense.
I'm just kind of getting quite emotional about it. I'm very proud of him, and I'm very proud of how it all turned out. I'm very proud of actually having a home like this.
You wanted to spend how much?
150 grand.
150.
We haven't spent 150 yet.
You haven't got there yet?
No.
That is astonishing. So what have you spent?
148.
500.
I should hasten to add that it isn't finished. I mean, let's not get too carried away with that whole budget thing.
I know how you've done that. Expediency, that drive to get best value, to not fritter, not to
waste, to avoid waste.
Yes, it really does look and feel remarkable. I can imagine myself living here quite easily. Well, I suspect the building's probably turned out better than you saw.
Hugely better than I thought, in terms of internal space, and that's largely due to Feli and her insistence and detail.
So, what's Maya think of it?
I think she loves it. She's very, very happy with the freedom and the space that just kind of opened up for her now.
She was roped in on this kind of thing, and so it was important that we finish from that point of view. Hopefully Maya gets the idea that if you work at something, you can achieve it.
This is now a super low energy, comfortable, light, warm, dry home. Hard to imagine it as cold, dark, wet and industrial. You've got to remember that this project started life as a sort of technical challenge of conversion with a strong environmental agenda. But of course, because of Richard's illness, it became something else. It became a sort of an expression of hope, an exercise in enjoyment, a family project that Richard and Maya and Ferry could all get involved with. And in that, I think at that point, the old water tank sort of stepped back, you know, and it allowed them to get on with that. And as a result, you know, standing in this courtyard, I can tell you that these walls make their presence felt around these beautiful buildings in such a gentle way. Standing here, you can sense the benign embrace of the old girl.
You get away with murder once you've been so profoundly ill.
This is something that he has thought about for years.
It's actually idiot-proof, which means I could do it, although I'm not suggesting I do.
If you can't get excited about this, then you've got a problem.
There's a possibility this could look like a bunch of scout huts.
I don't really like the look of it myself.
I begin to wonder whether it's going to have a whiff of the out-of-town retail centre.